Hello, and welcome to another Website Depot podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Greg Benevin, and I'm once again happy to be joined by another of our amazing clients. What's so neat, one of the many things that's so neat about here about Website Depot is that we work with so many different kinds of companies and clients that do so many different sorts of things. So we like to take the opportunity to, when we can, highlight what some of them are, because maybe there's something that you could use. There's something in your community, it's something that you could get something out of. And in the spirit of that, I'm very happy to be joined today by my friend Darren Elpant from Silverlake Recording Studios. Darren, how you doing today?
I am doing great, sir. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. This is great. It's warm, but not too warm. I closed the window to do this, so without the whole lot of outside noise. So I think that's going to be all right.
Well, you got
It,
the sunset behind you.
Yes. I never realized by the way, this is over here, folks. This is no over here. This is the Website Depot logo. It's cut off because we're doing this on Zoom on my phone. That is the logo. It is actually there. This is one of our sunset things. I'm wearing the blue shirt, so as to stand that back against it. But yeah, like I said, I mentioned the thing about the outside noise because I always try to be conscious of noise on these podcasts, but I feel like I should especially do that today since I'm
Well,
here
thank you.
talking to you. So if you could tell us a little bit about Silver Lake Recording Studios and what you do, Darren.
Well, thank you. There's so many facets to what we do.
Mhm.
I built the studio because I'm a drummer. I've been
Okay.
doing that since I was 9 years old. It's always been my passion.
Okay.
When about I hit my teenage years, I really became fascinated in recording
Mm.
and took many different paths. And then I had a record deal with a band, and as those things go, that kind of fell away. And I'm like, I'm really interested in recording. I did it as a
Mm.
kid, recording drums especially, but then that morphed into so many different things, producing bands, or as of late, I've been recording a lot of voiceovers for
Okay.
podcasts, TV shows, commercials, NPR, all that fun stuff.
Hmm. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So okay. So that's so obviously you've been doing this for a long time, and you can do
Very long
a
time.
whole lot of this. So I know as a person that's certainly not unfamiliar with voiceover and the performance aspect of it, but certainly I'm definitely a layperson when it comes to the technological aspects of
Right.
such things. What if you could tell us a little bit about what the Silver Lake Recording Studios has in terms of the
Sure.
tech, in terms of what you offer,
Well, so we have a bunch of different slogans and mottos that we kick around. And one thing I always wanted to be was the inexpensive solution to the big studios. So essentially,
Oh,
we have all the gear that you would find, or a lot of the gear that you would find in the bigger studios, but we're
okay.
in a smaller setting. We're actually
Hmm.
in a residential setting, which makes it even more relaxed.
Hmm.
And we have a lot of the vintage things that you would find, like Neumanns and Neves and SSLs. But the way we do it is we have it in maybe a smaller format, like a preamp or eight, let's say, rather than a whole big mixing board. We do have vintage Neumanns. And the other premise that we kind of go by is if we can't find, or it's just really way in the stratosphere for cost, we get some real faithful reproductions of classic vintage gear. But when it comes to
Wow.
recording voiceovers, by the way, we don't scrimp there, and we use
Mm.
the highest stuff that we can, that's available, I should say.
Oh, I bet. Okay. I mean, I guess again, I'm fascinated. This is so much of you know, uh, uh, in culture, like when you hear about classic and antique,
Right.
there's something specific. There's specific virtues to that. Whereas and I'm just fast, and I never would have associated such things, frankly, with recording
Sure.
and
Sure.
something that seems like it's so much, like galloping, advancing tech. So I'd be fascinated to hear what is it about both vintage stuff and the vintage reproductions you mentioned that are that really help them stand apart.
That's a great question. So a lot of the vintage equipment was handmade. So
Mm.
it's literally, people in a factory sort of setting, putting solder and soldering iron into whatever it is, a microphone, a preamp, a
Mhm.
compressor, or a limiter.
Okay.
And that has a huge effect because when it's just, and it's also, excuse me, let me take a step back. It's also
Please.
quality control. So, these days, there's some decent stuff coming out. A lot of it is again handmade, but when you get factories and computers hand stamping like PC boards, and it just it's not the same care is taken. And also there's certain things that are not available anymore. Certain
Mm.
tubes, certain diaphragms and stuff that they use for microphones, certain techniques, and all
Mm.
of it just kind of equates in a much more pleasant, silky smooth sound. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't that today, but it's kind of a little harder to come by in a newer piece of gear, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, again, as someone that's, kind of working their way through the technological aspect of it, it makes a lot of sense to me putting together what you said. It's like, okay, here's this vintage stuff that was literally crafted by the hands of people.
That's right.
And then that, even if you're reproducing that, that's the thing that leads to that more natural, that smoother sound. That
Right.
that makes a lot of
That's
sense.
right. You don't have
Okay,
to fight
cool.
for it. It's I never like the term "fix it in post" with so many people use it. You know, so it's like, because rather than fixing it in post, I rather let's just make it sound that much better. Because if
Right,
you have to fix it, then you're gonna have to just rely on whatever it is that you get. But if it
right.
sounds good to start with, then you're not fixing it. You're actually just enhancing the sound for the end product.
Gotcha. So yeah, so why not, make it better when you can and then simply just improve it as
That's right.
opposed to trying to save something that was, if not deficient, then perhaps maybe a little more mediocre than you'd hoped.
Right.
Okay, no, that makes all the sense in the world. Well, yeah, I mean, it's full disclosure, Darren's voiceover, setup is fantastic. I can say that because I've used it. I recorded Danny Starr's book there, and it was wonderful. I've been in multiple studios, I've been in multiple places, and I greatly appreciated my experience at the
And,
Silver Lake recording studio when
and I got
Darren
to
talks. Yes, it was
sorry to
right.
cut you off.
That's
This
exactly.
silky smooth voice that you're hearing today sounds even more amazing if you can imagine that when recorded on the proper gear. Yeah,
Right. In all honesty, the silky smooth voice, which is absolutely being wrecked by allergies right now. But other than that,
you can't
it's
tell.
certainly
You
true.
can't tell.
But I think that, but I mean, that's where I sort of wanted to go with this was just to, I mean, I can speak about the voiceover experience at your studio from the perspective of someone recording it. But if you could tell people how, you tend to go about the voiceover, maybe what
Sure.
makes you a little bit different there. Cause like I said, I just had a great experience.
Well, thank you. I think there's a psychology behind getting any artist in the studio.
Mm,
So, people are bearing their souls for you, whether it be a singer, an instrumentalist, a voiceover artist, right? So they're
mhm,
coming in, with a little bit of trepidation to begin with.
certainly.
So it's about the relaxing atmosphere. It's coming in, so there's a certain trepidation that an artist might have when they walk through the door from the outside inside the studio. So that first and foremost is setting up a relaxing environment, low
Mm,
pressure. Um, but it's about setting up fast, because you don't
mm,
want to waste someone's time. And also it's kind of, and it also breaks the confidence a little bit of the artist. And I
mhm,
believe that the artist should never be waiting for you.
mm.
So basically having everything set up, putting what you believe is the best choice, of microphone preamp for that artist, and that might change. I mean, you might
Mhm.
listen to a person's voice or their instrument. You say, you know what, I have a better choice in my mic locker for that. And
Mm.
knowing what your palette is, and being able to change that at a moment's notice, that's very important. Um, and so I think I preset as much as I can before a session.
Mhm.
I never think I always believe that your client, your artist, should never see you with your pants down, so to speak. You know,
Mhm.
basically they should walk in, the room should be ready to go.
Gotcha. No, I mean that makes so much sense. And just, I was struck by as you were saying that when you're talking about like, okay, you set up for what you think this person and their instrument or their voice needs. And then it hit me, okay, well, with all your years of experience having worked with the bands and having drummed and having been through all that, that would put you in a position to be able to figure all that out pretty quick, you know.
And having the options. That's the
Mm.
biggest thing because I remember when I was building the studio, I was so excited to get that one amazing microphone, and then
Mm.
takes the wind out of your sails when one day you put it on that microphone on a vocalist, and you're like, wow, how come this sounds like garbage? My equipment's broken. You realize no, it's not a one size fits all approach. Never.
Right.
You know.
I see. No, that makes so much sense, and that's why, and that's why it gets back to the thing you talked about, to having all these different options.
That's
That
right.
way, hey, it's like it really is. It's not so much just providing a place to record necessarily as it is providing recording solutions. Like
That's right. Thank you.
one
Yeah.
that's gonna be able to fit people. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, so 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 you're doing the voiceover now. You're getting a lot of folks coming in
I
through
am.
that. I guess it for so much of the people listening to this, they might think of voiceover as just audio books or the guy in the movie trailer that says "in a world." If you could talk about the different kinds of voiceover, I mean, just so people understand exactly all the different kinds of voiceover you have come through the Silverlake recording studios area.
Absolutely. So one of the more fun, I mean, it's all fun because it's great that I get to listen to so many interesting perspectives, which
Mm.
is truly a gift. But I love doing ADR, which stands for additional dialogue replacement.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So in that, I'll put a screen in the booth,
yeah.
and the artist will watch mouths. A lot of times it's either their mouth or it's an animation,
Mhm.
and they will do the voice to the characters, and it's so fascinating because it's almost like a blank canvas, but then it
Mm,
really comes to life. So that's very rewarding. So that's one of the
I
things that
bet.
I do. um, like you said, books on tape is really interesting because literally it's like a bedtime story, but I'm at work. So there's that sort of stuff. There's
Uh-huh.
some NPR that we do. One of
Mm.
my more fun projects is a couple, but we got to speak to the colonel, I guess, or the whoever the head of NASA for the spaceship.
Oh, wow.
And that was
Okay.
really neat.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of times, being as we're on Zoom today with the wonders of
Mhm.
Zoom, we do a lot of things remote. So
Oh,
just the other week, I had an artist. It was for a mini series on South Korea, and
okay.
really fascinating and really well done.
Uh-huh.
And so let me think about this. So one of the directors was in Singapore, and the
Okay.
other one was in London, and I
Okay.
had the talent in my room here. So
Hmm.
and again, it's just it's so amazing the time that we're in that we can do stuff like this. It was just fascinating to get different perspectives. Like, oh, hey, what's going on out your window now? And it's very different than what's going on outside my window. That's for sure. Um, so just a lot of stuff like that. We did an ADR session once for so it was kind of like a self help for kids, like some inner
Okay.
city kids that needed to know about how to open a bank account, needed to
Gotcha.
know that before you go in an interview, you should brush your teeth and comb your hair.
Real
Just
basic,
stuff
fundamental,
that we
important
all take
stuff.
for
Yeah.
granted. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's amazing, and not to name names, but I've had some really interesting actors and actresses through the
I
door.
was going to get there
Yeah.
eventually. It's better if you say it without me asking you.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to name names, but it's
Uh-huh.
always a thrill. It's always a treat, just to have a person, that you see around in your space, and
Hmm.
same thing for musicians. I've had some really incredible A-list musicians in the room, and it's always a treat because these people always bring a good attitude and make your job way easier. And
Oh,
that's,
I bet.
you
I
know,
bet. No, I mean, of what you just said, one thing that particularly struck me when you were speaking, and it's something that I certainly didn't know, was when you mentioned about, doing the stuff remotely. I
yes,
mean, I know that when I'm recording something on Zoom, I have my little microphone I bought online here next to me, and but and I just know from talking to a lot of folks, I'll do one of these on Zoom, and then I'll see the YouTube later. I'm like, oh, we had a good podcast, but it didn't sound all that great. But whereas what you're talking about when you're doing these things is that these remote things is that they're in the studio where you are and the other people are far across the world, that even if they're doing it remotely, you can still get that same high quality level like they
that's
were
right.
in the little
That's
booth
right.
there behind you.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
correct. Yeah, we just give a direct feed. So one line is a recording,
Hmm.
and then a direct feed into the other audio interface. I have two audio interfaces. One's for
Oh.
Zoom, one's for Pro Tools, and
Oh.
so they really get a good idea of what's going on. And that's why these days that's been, the choice. There used to be something called ISDN, and it still is, and Source
Hmm.
Connect, but it seems
Hmm.
like people are moving away from those protocols a little bit. They're moving away from these protocols because Zoom really has made the fidelity and obviously picture quality good enough that that's adequate.
Hmm.
And
No.
there are definitely those people that prefer the Source Connect these days, and that's something we're working on.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there. Let's put it again. Going back to the
Please.
options, there's a lot of options
Ah,
to get it.
right. Okay, gotcha. No, I mean, I'm fascinated to ask you about the musician thing, but
Yes, please.
before I do, I was curious, is there anything else that you want to tell people about the voiceovers that maybe I didn't cover or didn't ask
Think
at
about that.
Mhm.
I mean, it's one of those things that people who don't know think that
Mhm.
it's quite simple. And I guess when you and it when you do know, yes, it is, but there's an art to it. I had
Right.
to tell a quick story and not to throw
Please.
anyone under the bus. I had an
Absolutely not.
intern here. I said, hey, I'm going to go out and get us some coffee. Why don't you go ahead and get the sounds and start recording? And why it didn't flip flop and have me, have him getting the coffee. But when I
Okay.
came back and he was recording, it was really, really distorted. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh wow, okay, no, we gotta. Sorry, we got to start again here. And
Hmm.
it's easy if you know what to do, just like anything else, I guess. But I can't say that everyone knows what they're doing. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Right. No, 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 no. And that's all the more reason to go to someone like you that is a real professional that knows what they're doing, that has that moreover that has
Well,
the
thank you.
equipment and as well as the expertise, as opposed to just one or the other, that combination of it to come and get the kind of help and assistance that they need. Er,
I've been
Um,
doing it for so many years. That it's funny, and to kind of put a pin in this discussion,
mhm.
maybe there's only a couple knobs to turn when you're doing a voiceover. But it's knowing what to do in with that knob, let's say.
Certainly, I was struck by you said that maybe there's only a couple knobs to turn, and then directly over your shoulder, I can count no less than a dozen knobs simply in my line of sight here. From
Right.
right, no, no, not to be confused with the knobs at the thing below that, and then the thing next to the thing below it too. Right, and again, that's just in the shot. That's not even
Right.
the
That's
other
right. That's
knobs.
right.
Right. So yeah. So I guess that sort of figures in the next thing that we've been talking a minute about a voiceover. It's if you could tell us a little bit about musicians and having musicians
Sure.
in that too. I know that that's again having been in your space, I've seen how it's laid out so perfectly for not just one person in a booth, but an entire music group there. But if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, sure. Well, thanks. So I built this room as a drummer.
Okay.
Basically, being as we're in a residential setting, it had to be a decent sized room, and
Hmm.
it's soundproof, so I
Hmm.
can play drums, at 4 in the morning, and it's not because I get up early.
Right.
So, because you never know. It's like I like you never know when the creativity is going to strike. You
Hmm.
never know when someone calls you at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. and say, hey, can we get a drum track? We really need this because we want to put this out, in a couple of days. So, it's being prepared. But I have floated wood floors here. I have high ceilings. It just for a drum set and a drummer in a smaller room, it just makes it have a bigger sound. None of my walls are parallel, so you don't get that crazy like flutter. Like if you ever moved into an apartment before you move any of your furniture, and you're telling your realtor or whomever, hey, are they going to paint this or whatever? You hear that kind of crazy fluttering echo, and that's
Oh
a
yeah.
standing wave. And I had to fight that before I moved anything in here. And having walls that aren't parallel, help that. So that's one thing. My room is small and intimate, but I have fit. I had a session for it was for Entertainment Tonight. We were trying to get a band
Okay.
together for, I think it was like the 25th year celebration, and there we had 15 of us in here doing a live thing. It was just a rehearsal, but we made everyone fit, and we had the vocals going through headphones, and it was
Mm.
fantastic. More recently, I had a 9-piece band.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was fun. And it was a recording, and it sounded amazing. We had drums, we had 2 guitar players, we had a bass player, we had someone literally playing a harp, a string harp. We had it was amazing. Um, we had a pedal steel player. We had an instrument called a mandocello, which is like a cross between a lute and a mandolin. I had never seen it before
I
in my
never even
life.
heard those. That.
Um, and
Yeah.
it's a neat instrument.
I bet.
Trying to think. Um, that band didn't have an accordion player. That was a different band, but it was really great. What I've been told is my room is a little bit of a reminder of what Sun Studios is like. It's not that much smaller than Sun. It's not that much
Oh,
smaller than Motown. You know,
okay.
these are studios that made some of the music that's, really the fabric of my life. And it just kind of is how it, happened, I guess. Given the space that I had, I said, how can I make the most out of it? So, we've maximized it in here, and I'm really proud of the end result that we get.
Wow. I mean, that, no, I was just, as you were speaking, I was just thinking back to how I'd never put that together. The thing about the non-parallel walls.
Yes.
That, but you're right. It is such a unique layout. And I just figured, oh, okay, this is guy's studio and it's eccentric and all that. But no, it's every single thing was so intentional. I mean,
Yeah, of
that
course.
thing about it, because, and I've certainly done, as I'm sure all of us have, when you stand in an empty house, an empty apartment, and just
Right.
hear your voice,
Right.
it's going to go into the walls and all that. Whereas every single thing that you've done is to make the sound better, going down to the very basic blueprint, foundational,
It,
that,
and
yeah,
I'll take that to another level.
please.
Even all the cables, even all the wires that we have in here. Um, so gold is one of the best conductors. So
Okay.
all our patch bay and our microphone cables have gold ends on them.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a better conductor. The wire that we use, the wire that's in the wall, everything there's a purpose for everything that we do here and that we have here.
Right. And that really just, shows the attention to detail. I mean, this is not about aesthetics or style. Those things are secondary. It's about making this the best possible sound
That's right.
that you can have. Okay, so I guess, just continuing on the musician
Yes.
thing, you've spoken about, obviously it is amazing that you fit in these, 9-piece bands, all these enormous things. But I'm also assuming, just from the way you're talking about that today, maybe you've had some soloists too, or just, two pieces, or just that kind of thing. Like,
Absolutely.
mhm,
I did a fun project a few months back. It was for a film,
mhm.
and actually, there's 2 around that period of time that were really interesting. One, we had a cellist and a viola player
Oh,
in our main room,
okay.
and for that, I take the drums out. I have baffles to basically focus the sound, and I
Mhm.
like to use ribbon microphones because they have a
Mm,
certain there's a certain smoothness in the top end
mhm.
that are very forgiving for a string instrument. Because a lot of times,
Oh.
if you hear on a lower fidelity recording or someone that's recording like a violin in their bedroom, there's that kind of upper screechy sound that's kind of like, 2 cats fighting, at midnight on a fence. Um, and, here at Silverlake Recording Studios, we avoid the screechy cat sound. Um, so I like to use ribbon mics for string instruments, but of
Mhm.
course, there's condensers that you put around, and there's certain microphone techniques that a lot of
Mm.
these my contemporaries have figured out, uh, you know, uh, that we employ. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. That could be a whole other conversation.
Okay.
So that was a fun one.
Uh-huh.
And then we did another one where we had a cellist in the booth,
Mm.
and we had someone playing piano out here, and then we would switch and have acoustic guitar in there, and then viola player. Excuse me, my New York accent came out right there. A viola player. So a viola player, gee. So, um, and it's really nice, and that's fun. I gotta admit that's fun. But where I started, I'm a rocker.
Mm.
I'm a rock drummer.
Okay.
So everything that I do, and I do a ton of sessions as a drummer,
Uh-huh.
is under the genre of rock.
Mm.
Whether it be classic rock, funk rock, soft rock, I say classic country rock,
Mhm.
harder edge rock, whatever it is. That's as a drummer, that's what I do. We've done some really very great big sounding rock records in here, and that was
Oh,
my
cool.
initial challenge: is how do you make a medium sized room, small to medium sized room sound enormous? And
Ah.
when when you know what you're doing, it's not such a hard thing to accomplish, but it
Mm.
does take a while to learn that. Where do you put the mics? Um, how do you mix it? And we could talk about mixing too, because that's something that I do.
Please.
You
Mhm.
know, so mixing is that elusive thing. It's
Mhm.
like, sure, you have stuff and it sounds good, but it's how you manipulate it and what you do to it that makes it sound like a polished, radio production. That
Oh,
was like
okay.
when I was young, make it sound radio. That was the thing, and it's a hard thing to figure out, but
I bet.
I guess do it for so many years, and a lot of trial and error, and also talking to a lot of people that are doing what you want to do, and that's just you learn it as you go along, I guess.
No, I mean that was fascinating. I mean that just just in how that entire for one, well, one thing, I grew up from the third grade through graduating high school playing the cello. So I'm absolutely familiar with that squeaky
Oh,
voice. We
excellent.
tried recording it on,
Yeah.
CDs at the time, and it, sounded like someone was just,
Wow.
trying to hack their way into the room. So I know what you mean there. Yes, but it was but I was just struck by, I mean, just look at how and what in your answer, how it showed the real versatility of what you've got. I mean, here you are talking about, we can put
Oh, thank
someone on the cello in the room, and then it's like, and then just moments later, it's like, okay, and also the studio, we can do these huge rock albums that, it just it
you.
totally fits the entire thing. That shows all of
Well, and
what
horns.
you got there. What's that? Horns,
Yeah, and
right?
horns. I did a thing for Impulse Records. A really fantastic trumpet player uses me
Mm,
quite a bit.
mm.
I did this avant-garde jazz session a few
Oh,
years back, and
okay.
what we did is we totally converted the room. We set up little stations so that basically, okay, the drums were mic'd over here, piano over here. We baffled off a guitar, but then we had little stations where if someone wanted to, like, throw a chain at a cymbal, we can capture that. And it was amazing. It's like they would come up with a term, and just some random, the guy would thumb through a book and come up with two words that maybe didn't go together, and then that's what they had to do. They had
Oh,
to create whatever that feeling was to them,
wow,
and it was amazing. It was
wow.
really remarkable. But there was saxophone player, a guitar player, piano, upright bass, drums, and like I said, multiple things being hit by other multiple things, and it was
Yeah.
incredible. It really was.
I mean, no, that is remarkable. I mean, I'm going to spend the rest of the day thinking about a chain hitting a cymbal. I mean, like a chain, like it, as in like a small chain, like a dog leash. Or are we talking like a full on, like the chain we've chained the boat, the
No, you know
trailer
what?
to
So
the?
it, that's right. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
So
no,
if
you
you picture,
didn't.
there
Please,
are
I
two
need to
things
hear
that you
this.
use.
Yeah,
One, I need to hear this.
yeah.
So if you picture the lightweight chain that one might hang a chandelier with,
Okay,
that
yeah. I
was
mean,
one
that's
thing
still a
they used.
chain, but
But
that's
also,
also, yeah, yeah.
but I think they also call it toilet chain. It's like the little beads, the little balls
Oh,
on. And but as far as the other chain, the guy literally would, all of a sudden, I'd see him playing. I turn around because he was
mhm.
behind me, and I'd see him take something out. He'd whack his guitar neck with this chain, and then he would detune it, and it was just the creativity, and that goes back to
Wow.
the I try. to create I hate to use this word, but this comfortable, safe space
Yes.
for
I
artists,
was going to get there if you
right?
didn't. Yes, that's exactly where I
Yeah.
was going to go. Yeah.
And so yeah, and that's kind of why I do what I do. It's like, we talked in the beginning about the psychology behind it,
Mhm.
but that's the thing. It's like, so, like you're saying, it's the maybe my knowledge and my experience, it's the equipment, but it's the warm, inviting, creative environment
Mhm.
is what I'm really trying to do here. I don't really put clocks on the walls because I don't want people. I mean, I want them to know, what
I
time it is.
remember. I
I-
remember that. Being like, should I look at my
yeah,
phone? Yes. I remember there not being clocks. It's like a casino. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's like, yeah, we pump in oxygen to keep you awake. But and to that avail, the comfort. We were talking about this. I am a bit of a tea snob, and I make
Mm.
awesome
I was.
cup of tea if I do say
We
so
just saw you
myself.
drinking it a minute ago. I was going to ask in a minute. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's all part of the experience, right?
Mm.
I try to always have some sort of snack here for people. Bottles of water. Because again, it's the big size studio feeling, but in a smaller setting. And
Gotcha.
and because of that, and because of all this, I can keep my prices down.
Mm.
And so you're getting, the same final product that you might get in a bigger room, but you're spending half the amount. And and also I'm always happy to do any and all parts of the process. If you want to come here and just do
Mm.
drums, that's great with me and bring it back to your place. If you want to do everything, if you want me to just do mixes, if you want me to just record your vocals, whatever it is, I'm more than pleased to help someone on their journey.
Right. No, that makes so much sense. And I was going to ask, no, that's perfect. So I mean, we've covered, all the different equipment you have, your experience there, where you come from, what the voiceover, what you offer there, and what you do for the musicians and all that. Is there anything else that you would like to add that, hey, maybe we haven't covered to this point? You even covered the tea. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered yet?
You can cover.
And
Let me think about it. I'm sure once we hang up, I'll be like, oh, But let me think about this. What haven't we covered? Voiceover. I mean, yeah. We could talk a minute about post production.
sure.
So, just to kind of tangent on post production. I've done a handful of shows for different networks on quite a few shows on the Lifetimes channel, show on the Speed channel. And actually, we are Emmy nominated for a show that was on the Speed
Hey,
channel, which is really nice.
congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you. That was a while back.
Uh-huh.
It was interesting. We talk about saving audio rather than just recording, and sometimes when it's out of my hands,
Mhm.
I kid you not, the sound of the noise floor, as we call it, was
Uh-huh.
almost as loud as the dialogue,
Oh,
and
jeez.
I had to fix it and make it, ready to be put on air. And I guess we did such a good job. And I also mixed. So I was the sound editor, the sound effects editor, and the mixer for this show. And the
Mhm.
show was nominated for an Emmy. It was a tech
That's
Emmy, though.
great.
Let me clarify that because that's important to say. It
Yeah, but they
wasn't.
don't just hand those out. I mean, you still got to go earn that. That's still
It,
quite
it
an
was cool.
accomplishment to be
It
nominated for a
was
tech
really a
Emmy.
treat.
Hmm.
A really funny sidebar, by the way, and
Please.
whether or not we use this. So when I'm not in the studio, I do corporate audio for
Okay.
award shows and stuff like that. Well,
Sure.
I happen to be the audio engineer on that Tech Emmy show, and I didn't know. So I had talked to, because it was fresh still. I was
Mhm.
talking to the video engineer next to me, and I said, I was doing this show, and he's thumbing through the book. He said, "Hey, is this the show you said you worked on?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Look, it's up for an award." I was like, "Holy cow!" I said to him, I said, "Well, here's the thing. If they call the show up to the podium, I'm leaving my place here at the console
Right.
to receive this award." So it was very funny to kind of double dip in that respect, you know.
Oh yeah, though someone else can work those knobs while you take a
Yeah,
walk.
you know,
This is beyond that. Yeah.
you did the hard work. All you gotta do is just, make sure the level's right.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, again, one thing I always try to use this podcast for is just to sort of, kind of move past people's assumptions. And we did that earlier with what voiceover can entail. And it seems like in the discussion of post production, that's another opportunity to do so. I mean, I think a lot of people think, okay, well, we've recorded it, so now we'll just cut it into where we want, and that's good. And obviously that's not the case. If you could go into a bit about what post production can be, and how you can help facilitate it there.
Sure. Like you so astutely said, people, a lot of people are making films, and there's a lot of really amazing creative people out there. And, not everyone knows everything.
Mm.
So sometimes I get less than desirable sounding audio. And it's a matter of, people are spending a lot of money. And sometimes I'm their last stop. It's like, please save the project.
Mm.
And I have to say, we have an amazing track record in doing so. Whether there's a crackle or a shirt ruffle or something like that, as a dialogue editor, you're expected to, take that out as much as possible.
Mm.
Unfortunately, if an airplane flies by and steps on your dialogue, you're gonna have to re-record that. And again, that's called ADR, additional dialogue recording.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then, once you pass that, once you get your dialogue, then there's background music. There's some amazing composers out there, and we take their music and we put it as a bed, which means just underneath the dialogue. And that's a trick in reality TV because, a lot of times reality TV, it's less than awesome,
Mm.
recording. So they do that a lot of times to hide, the idiosyncrasies, let's say. And of
Mm.
course, there's sound effects. And for the show I was mentioning before, that we were nominated for a Tech Emmy, they have what's called a lower third. It's when the name pops up on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And for this one, I created a cool little splash, a cool little effect, because there's like flames and it kind of whooshes in, a little fire crackle, and then the car, it sounds like a car peeling out. It was a car show, when it kind of leaves the screen.
Nice.
It's kind of, utilizing that sort of creativity. And so it's all that, it's mixing it together. It's there are a lot of different networks have different protocols and how you have to deliver
Mhm.
the audio. So there's
Mm.
that. And it's knowing that, and it's ever changing, so it's keeping
Mm.
up to date on that stuff. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's what post production is. But just real quickly to go back to
Please.
the independent,
Yeah.
it's getting it as close as possible to that. I remember in the very beginning, one of my first projects, I mixed a horror film,
Okay.
and I was learning. It's probably my first project, and the guy was a real go-getter, and the film was great. And he's like, "Hey, I got it to air, in one of the local huge screens in one of the local studios."
Okay.
And I sat there the whole time, almost with my hands on my ears, because it just didn't sound great. It was really
Oh
super
Jesus.
harsh. And
Oh
I was like,
Jesus.
I wanted to kind of like, sink into my seat a little bit. But it's those experiences that you learn from. It's like, oh,
Mm.
okay, I need to kind of, take it back a second and listen and do more research. And I think that's a
Mm.
big thing, right? Not resting on your laurels and not having an ego
Definitely.
about what you do. It's like, the tops in the field, you listen to these guys talk and they're still learning.
Right.
They're always
Right.
willing to embrace whatever it is, whatever comes out, whatever is new. And, and you take what you will and what you want, what you could use from something that's new, and then you
Mhm.
discard the rest, what's not useful.
No, it makes so much sense. I mean, it was just as you were saying that, I was thinking about, earlier in the conversation when you talked about how you get the vintage stuff and then where you need it, the vintage reproductions, and you also use the new stuff too. And like you said, that continual finding of what, is new and topical and what works, and then discarding the rest. And then, yeah, that all makes a lot of sense.
Um,
And hmm,
oh, and so I'm sorry. So to piggyback on that,
please.
so you're right. Using the vintage or vintage inspired
Mhm,
with some of the modern techniques or technologies is,
mhm.
I think, really what the modern studio of today is. Um,
Mm,
being able to record in Pro Tools
mhm,
with vintage gear, it just gives you the best of both worlds.
mm. Right. That makes sense. That really makes sense. That makes sure no, that it's understandable then why you would offer this unique combination of all of that. And, yeah, well, that's you covered everything I could think of.
I
Is there anything else, any lasting thing that you'd like to tell the folks watching today there?
Actually, there's maybe a small little blurb here. So,
Please.
so as far as COVID, to try to keep everyone safe and prevent the spread of the virus, what
Mhm.
we do is we have these nylon sheaths, I guess you can call it, that we
Mm,
put on the pop filter and the
mm.
earmuffs of the headphone. And we clean every surface in the studio
Oh, good.
between every artist.
Mhm.
And we wear masks. uh, the a lot of times when we're doing voiceovers, the artist is in the booth behind closed doors, and at that time, one can take the mask off, but we're very conscious about what is going on out there. It's
Mm.
definitely seems to be getting worse, unfortunately, but we're
Right.
very conscious about that.
That's great. No, that's great. That's one more way that you're looking out for the folks there. That's
Absolutely.
tremendous. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you so much.
today. This is great. I mean, it's all I always say, oh, I learned a lot, but no, this time I really did learn a lot.
Oh
I
well,
mean,
thank you.
that was just, I really did. Look them up, Darren Elpant, Silverlake Recording Studios. The contact info will be at the bottom of this thing where you're watching it. I'm sure they put it in there. A lot of these other people, I'm like, they're good at their jobs. We work at Website Depot. I've actually, like I said, I've recorded voiceover and that booth over his shoulder. I can tell you this is a great place to do such a thing from my own personal experience. Thanks for coming out again. And on behalf of Website Depot, my name's Greg Benevent. Take it easy. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.